Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipsson. Today's guest is Ricardo Fort, a sports and entertainment partnership expert whose previous employers include Coca-cola, Unilever, Visa, and more. He has worked closely with most of the large sporting events, including the Olympics, FIFA World Cup, and the NFL. Today, he runs his own consultancy, Sport by Fort, and he has also one of the best accounts on Twitter, at least if you ask me. Get ready to learn why he left Coca-cola to then later return, his opinion on ambush marketing, how it is like working with major sporting events, why he's lecturing at Barca Innovation Hub and other schools, and much more. Ricardo Fort, welcome to the Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you for inviting me, Marcus.
I'm very excited to talk to you today. And you are a sports and entertainment partnerships expert. You are, I would say, an expert in this business of sports in general. Now you're running your own consultancy, Sport by Fort. And you also have worked for big brands like Visa and Coca-cola. First of all, how did you get introduced to the sports industry? And we take it from there.
Okay. Well, my background is in marketing. So I worked as a marketer for many years before having the chance to specialize in sports and entertainment marketing. I was working in Brazil back in 1998, 1999. And I was working for Coca-cola. It was not my first job. I had worked for Unilever and Kellogg before. And then I joined Coca-cola. And Coca-cola invests a lot in partnerships, sponsorships. So if you're a marketer working for Coca-cola, you end up being involved with these areas one way or the other. So while I was working as a general marketer, brand manager, brand director, for Coke, I was part of several projects with the Brazilian national team, FIFA World Cups and Olympic Games, always working from Brazil for Brazil. One of these projects that I was involved led to an invitation to come to Atlanta to interview, and later they offered me a position to work in Atlanta as a global entertainment marketing director, which was basically coordinating, managing the relationships, and developing global platforms, global programs, campaigns for everything related to movies, to music, and to gaming. That was back in 2002. A year later, there were some changes, and my boss at the time, he told me, well, you're Brazilian, you should know something about football. So instead of managing entertainment, come to the other side and manage sports. So I was the global football director for Coca-cola. And since then, I've been working with sports most of my time.
Is that assumption correct? That just because you're Brazilian, you should know football?
No, it isn't. It was a misconception. I do like football. I don't understand football, but I like football a lot.
Oh, okay. So it was kind of right in your case.
Yeah, it worked. It worked out well for me. So.
Yeah. You alluded to it a little bit, but what were some of the roles that you had at Coca-cola? Because you have been there in 2 times, right? You were doing some things in between and then you came back to Coca-cola. So what have been your different roles and what were your responsibilities?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I started in Brazil as a brand manager. So when I came to Atlanta, I was managing global football for most of the years that I was here. I was here for 4 years. So I was managing global football. That were the years leading up to the FIFA World Cup in Germany in 2006. So I did all the project, managed everything, we launched campaign, 150 countries doing work. And then after that, I went back to Brazil on another general marketing position. I was brand director for all the soft drinks in Brazil. Then I worked in Brazil for 3 years. Then I was promoted to be the head of marketing for India and the countries around India. So I moved to New Delhi, was there for a couple of years. Then I was tired of working for Coca-cola, quit my job, got an offer to work for Danone in France. I moved from New Delhi to Paris, was in Paris for a year, didn't like the job, love living there, didn't like the job a lot. So a year later, I quit and I was hired by Visa to manage their global sponsorship and then global advertising. So I moved from Paris to San Francisco. And then for the following 4.5, 5 years, I was working for Visa. I did many things at Visa. Sponsorships was the core of my job, but at some point at the end of my tenure at Visa, I was doing global brand, design, advertising, communication. So all the consumer marketing for Visa was under my responsibility. At that time, Coke was making some changes here in Atlanta. They knew that I was doing the work for Visa. I always kept good relationship with Coca-Cola. I have had a lot of friends there. So they invited me to come back. So I moved back from San Francisco to Atlanta, where I live today. And then between 2016 through 2021, I was responsible for their global sponsorship department.
You said that you left Coca-Cola because you didn't like it anymore. So what was it that you didn't like? And what made you then come back if you didn't like it?
Yeah, it's not that I didn't like. I was tired. I was tired of doing the same thing for many years. I was at Coke for 12 years. And I thought I had enough. I learned enough that I had to learn. So I thought there were other things for me to do. And then I wanted to explore different categories, different brands, which is what I did. And then when they called me back, the reason that brought me back was the job. Because at that time I realized, right after I left Coke, I realized that I really like to do sports. And all the other things that I was doing were just distractions for me. So I left. I was in India doing, the whole marketing department was under my supervision. So I had brand marketers and advertising and promotions and all the things, media and all the things that a marketing department has. So, but the only thing I liked to do, I enjoyed doing, was the sports and entertainment. So when I left, I went to Danone. I was doing none of that, and I was miserable. So when Visa called me to go there and do this job, I thought, well, that's great. This is exactly what I want to do. And the same thing happened at Coke, but Coke has a bigger, broader portfolio than Visa had. So it was a better, more interesting job for me. That's why I returned to Coke again. And the other thing was, a lot of the people that were in leadership positions at Coke back when I left were people that I didn't agree with the way they thought, the way they do business, they did business. And then a lot of changes happened in the years that I was out of the company. And most of the people that I admire were promoted to executive positions. So the CEO, the president, the CMO, all of them are people that I had a lot of respect. So I was tired of the work. I didn't admire the people. And then I came back to a company, to a job that I liked, to work with people that I respected. So there was a combination of multiple things.
I understand. Both Visa and Coca-Cola are not directly, a sports company. Why do you think that brands from outside of sports decide to do so much partnerships and promotions within the sport industry?
Yeah, I would say that most brands that invest in sports are not sports brands. So if you take the usual suspects, apparel brands, or some broadcasters, everybody else has nothing to do with sports, but they invest because people care about it. And in order to be relevant, to create brands that are relevant, you have to understand what people are passionate about. And sports is one of these big things. When you talk about sports, people stop, they pay attention, they listen to you. And if you do good things and you add value to their sporting experiences, the way they watch, the way they play, the way they talk about it, then most people welcome brands to these conversations. And this is how you build brands that matter, relevancy for brands, and you drive more business. Because you're more relevant, because people welcome you, because you are more consumed, you generate more business, more revenues, and positive impact for the companies.
And also Coca-Cola has a very close relationship with the FIFA World Cup, and Visa with the Olympics. Mm-hmm. So how is it to work with these big tournaments?
Luckily, and I think I'm the only person that did both companies. Visa and Coca-Cola are two sponsors of the FIFA and the Olympics. So I negotiated contracts and I worked with the FIFA World Cup and Olympics in both companies. And there are some similarities and there are some differences in the way that the companies use the partnerships, they promote the partnerships. But in general, what they do is they use to create value, create opportunities for their customers. And the customer can be a bank, or for Visa, or can be a supermarket, or a retailer for Coca-Cola. They create opportunities for them to do more business, to grow, and as a consequence, they are more valued and they grow as well. And they also use it to build brand relevance, talking to consumers directly. So you talk about things that people care, the World Cup, and suddenly they care more about you than they would otherwise. So in that sense, both companies do similar jobs by talking about the FIFA World Cup and the Olympics.
I was speaking to Michael Payne, who used to work the marketing director for IOC. I can say that you know who he is on your...
He's a good friend of mine, yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah. He was on an earlier episode here, and I asked him about ambush marketing. Mm-hmm. And he said that there is more talk about ambush marketing than actual ambush marketing. And it would be interesting to hear your opinion, since you have been at Visa. And he gave an example of IOC cutting up American Express cards at some point at a press conference.
Yeah. So marketers are more sophisticated today than in the past. So there are legal ways of ambushing without being ambushed. So ambush marketing is more of a moral issue than a legal issue, and I think there's a difference there. So marketers are smart enough not to cross the line where they are legally in trouble, but they go very close and they use tricks to imply an association with events that they don't have the rights to do it. I think that the marketers that do it are shameful. I mean, they are just a shame for the profession, because I think this is a very low level of marketing. And for me, ambush marketing is it's parasite marketing. They are trying to take advantage of somebody else's investment. So I think it's a very ugly thing to do. So decent brands, decent companies don't do this. So every time a company is doing this, for me, they are worthless. For me, companies that ambush, they are, I disrespect them deeply. But I don't see great brands doing ambush marketing anymore. In the past, I mean, of course, if you go back to the 80s, the 90s, there were a lot of situations where Amex and Visa, or Coke and Pepsi, or you name it. But these are old stories. Today, it's hard. So every time that you see an ambush legal bad thing happening, is usually from a company that doesn't have the knowledge, the capabilities, and most of the time they do it because just they don't know what they're doing. So it's just ignorance. Is most of the time is not bad intentions.
And it's also, there are a lot of strict rules. I know I work for an ice hockey brand, and when it was the Olympics, and for us to post something on social media, you are not allowed to use some of the Olympic logos or phrases and stuff like that. So it's a huge regulation around it.
Yeah, the rights holders they create fences, and these protections, these fences that they create around the intellectual property they sell, is what guarantees the revenues from sponsors. So no sponsor will give money to any rights holders if they are not protected, and I guess that comes with the territory. So if a sporting federation wants to benefit from all the resources that the Olympic Committee distributes to all of them annually, they have to play by the rules, and their sponsors have to play by the rules. So there's a lot of different protections for everyone.
I would like to ask you a couple of questions on what happens in the world of sports and see your opinion on it. You have a fantastic Twitter, which is at Sport by Fort. So if someone doesn't follow you, I believe that they should.
Thank you.
First of all, before we do that, just as we said, you have your own consultancy. So what exactly is it that you consult companies on?
Okay, well, there are a couple of different things. I work with sponsors or wannabe sponsors to help them think about how to invest, where to invest, how much they should pay, what they should buy, how they should activate, how they should structure their teams, people they should hire, agencies they should hire. So if you want to do a good job in sports, there are a lot of things that you should be doing in order to take advantage of your investments. Only the money is not enough. So I help them think about that and organize that and help them negotiate and do things the way that can benefit them the most. So that's part of the job, working with sponsors or companies in general. Then there is another type of project which is led by right holders. So how to sell better, how to be more attractive to sponsors, what kind of rights I should offer, how to package the rights that I have, how to talk to companies. So I don't do any selling. So if a company, if a rights holders call me to say, hey, can you introduce me to that person? I don't do this kind of things because I'm not in the sponsorship sales business. But if they ask me, I want to sell this to companies like consumer goods, what should I tell them? So there are a few things that they should do in order to be more effective to just to have a conversation with these companies. So this is a second type of project. Then there are many sports tech startups that are looking for advisors, either because they have to engage with brands or they have to engage with rights holders. So I'm advising 5 companies today. I work with their founders and I help them think about the best way to drive growth and how to look at sponsorships and brands in general. And then there are a few other projects which are that don't fall into any of these categories. Things like athletes that want to develop their personal brand, or I'm working in a project now to create the equivalent of the Premier League in Brazil. But in general, my contribution to any of these organizations is what's the best way to buy or to sell and to activate. This is stuff that I have done for Coke, for Visa. I have seen a lot of things in different partners that can add value to sports organizations.
That's very interesting. And specifically the athlete brands have been so important lately, and with the NIL and so forth, I'm sure you're working a lot on that also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the United States, because of the changes in regulations, now college athletes and even high school athletes can be sponsored. So because of that, there are a lot of brands coming in trying to develop. But the industry here is so big. All the big agencies are doing something and they're hiring athletes and selling rights to athletes. But it's great. It's a lot of new opportunities for these athletes.
For sure. So when I'm out there to hunt for more sponsorships, I should hire Sport by Fort.
Yeah, call me. I have special deals with friends.
Sounds great. A couple of days ago, it was announced that Audi will enter the Formula One starting season 2026. What's your opinion on that and the rise of F1 in general?
Yeah, I mean, as a platform, Formula One has developed so much in the last few years. I've worked with Formula One and I've worked with McLaren specifically. I've helped negotiating deals with Formula One as well for other brands, and they are the best partners any brand can have, because they allow so many different things from branding. They have strong brands for all the teams. The Formula One brand itself is very strong. Now that they're going through this process of reprioritization of markets and becoming stronger in markets that are more important for businesses of most companies. This is great as well. It's going to add a lot of value. All the things they are doing on the entertainment side to bring more excitement to the events. So there's a lot of good things happening with Formula One. Total merit of their new management since Liberty acquired them. For the car manufacturers, I mean, if you want to surf this wave of success and you can afford to have a team, great. So I think that every car brand should consider seriously figuring out a way to be part of Formula One, more than any other category of motor racing. And Audi, I mean, they have a great brand. They have a lot of investments, a lot of smart people. So it's a perfect marriage.
Do you know if they will extend the Formula One lineup with one more team? Do you know that?
I don't know the specifics, but it's possible, because I think they can. The regulations, the current regulations, allow them to expand I don't know if it's 2 or 3 teams, but it all depends on. So if you launch a new team, because you are diluting the value of each of the teams, there is like a contribution that every team has to pay, every new team has to pay to everyone, like a membership fee that you have to pay. And they haven't accepted any new team yet. I know that there are like 2 or 3 groups of people well-funded talking to Formula One today that with the idea of joining. But that's why you see some of the car companies making partnerships and being part of an existing team, because I think it's a more faster and easier way of joining Formula One.
Another deal that was happening not as recent, but quite recently, was Apple's deal with the MLS, Major League Soccer. So North America has figured out that soccer, or what you and I call football, is a great sport. And now it's been also a rise in popularity over there. So do you think that the deal with Apple, is that beneficial for MLS?
I think, it is. It is today. I don't know, because it's a long-term deal. I think it's 10 years. And I don't know how this is going to look like in 10 years, because a lot of things are happening in soccer in the States. And, in 4 years, there'll be the FIFA World Cup here. So it's hard to say how the appreciation of soccer rights in the US is going to be, in 9-10 years. So it looks like it's a good deal today. There's a good chance there is going to be a good deal still in a few years' time. I think it's great because a partner like Apple brings a lot to the table in addition to money. So, the technology, the brand. So it's great that Apple decided to be part of sports through the MLS as well. So I think this is very positive. But one of the things I think it's interesting for people working with sports in general to understand is, when you look at the United States, the leagues in the United States, the MLS is the 5th largest league. So you have the NFL, you have the NBA, the MLB, NHL, and then the MLS. So the MLS, despite its incredible growth, it's still the number 5 league. However, that's misleading, because the money invested in football, in soccer in the United States is much bigger than that, because there is a lot of money going to rights of international leagues. So if you put together all the money that is going to broadcast and to sponsor the Premier League, League One, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, if you put it all together, they are much bigger than the MLS looks, because this is not MLS. So you have all these leagues combined, there's a lot of money. So the US is one of the countries that invests the most in football globally, just because of the media rights. So there is a lot of interest in football here. And the MLS is just one of the expressions. Of course, the National League is very important, is how people consume football every day. But it's by no means the only way of consuming football in the United States.
One could argue that when you have a sport that is on the rise, that it might be better to be on like mainstream TV. Now it's more premium on Apple. Do you think that might harm the sport?
Well, so the media landscape today is very different than just a few years ago. So today, streaming is the main form of distribution for most sports. Of course, you have a lot of broadcasting in linear TV, et cetera, but the streaming companies, the NFL, for example, this year, 100% of the matches on streaming. So the platform is becoming irrelevant. This is slightly different than when you go to Europe. So if many countries in Europe still mandate that the leagues are sponsored, or at least some of the matches are broadcasted, not sponsored, broadcasted in open to air. But here in the States, I think it's a matter of just a few years where everything's going to be in streaming, and then Apple or any other channel will be less relevant or less of a barrier for people to follow.
Last one. Now we have World Cup in Qatar, and also the Saudi Arabia have been bidding for the Olympics. With regards to human rights issues and so on, is this an issue in sports?
Oh yeah, it's a big issue in sports. Well, I think it's a big issue in life. I mean, more than sports, right? So the human rights challenges in many countries are a problem for societies, for us in general. When it comes to sponsorships, I think it's a little bit hypocritical because you see a lot of companies in trouble, a lot of sponsors in trouble because they are involved with events in Qatar, in Russia, in Saudi Arabia, etc. But when these are the same companies are doing business there. So every time that a company comes and say, "Oh, we are, Qatar or Saudi Arabia are not, they have human rights problems." So my first question to them is, okay, so why don't you stop doing business there? If you have a problem with how Saudi Arabia treats their citizens, you should not do business there. And all these big companies, they have big business in Saudi Arabia. Qatar is a small market, right? Qatar is a very small country. So any company can afford to criticize Qatar because if they are banned from Qatar, it's unlikely that their lives are going to be very affected, right? Their business is going to be very impacted. But if you're banned for Saudi, that's a big deal. I mean, it's a big market, a lot of money. So, brands walk this fine line of saying, "Oh, human rights. We support the changes, and we want Saudi Arabia to change. However, we're not going to leave the market. We're still going to do business there." I guess the only exception, of course, I mean, with Russia, with this incredible, almost unthinkable war and the attack on Ukraine, the brands had no choice but leaving Russia. But that's a very extreme case, right? On a daily basis, you have so many countries doing horrible things, and brands will never leave. So brands will never leave China. China, they have the Uyghur problem. Brands are pretending this is not happening. Sponsors are pretending this is not happening because China is too important. No, Saudi, same story. But then it comes to the small countries, then it's easier to criticize. But I think sport can do a lot more for pushing these regimes to change the way they behave. And I think that we have to look at all of them and consider the evolution, the direction that they are moving, because no regime is perfect, right? So I live in the United States. I can see in 4 years' time a lot of countries saying, why are we playing the United States? I mean, there's mass shootings in the United States every day. Is it right to host an event in the United States? I think that's a plausible question. Today, we question Saudi Arabia human rights problems. But I guess from an evolution standpoint, when you look at Qatar, for example, Qatar is far from being perfect. They have a lot of problems. But in 2011, when they were selected, they were much worse. So I think the events they play a role in improving the living conditions of a lot of people and the improvements in human rights. And that's a great thing that sports can do. So, I welcome the pressure from NGOs. I think you have to put pressure in broadcasters, in brands to push the countries to do better. And I think step by step things are going to get better. But the idea that there is a place that is perfect and all the problems are have been addressed, no, this is utopia.
I agree with you on that, and also I believe that sports can, make countries improve in order to get events. I just hope that it's not like a facade just for the game, and then you go back to it. Also needs to stay like that.
Yeah, no, listen, I was in Russia for the Olympics in 2014, and I was in Russia for the World Cup in 2018. It was a total farce. The Russia that I visited is not Russia. Russia today, or Russia has always been one of the worst regimes in the world. They pretended they were not for a month during the World Cup. And I think that's a lesson that every sporting organization needs to learn. You have to have the right controls to make the right decisions and try to drive change in a real way, not in just let's pretend everything is nice here for this 30 days, and then when everybody is back home, we can torture people again.
Also, Saudi is a very good example because you have, for example, the Live Tour, the golf tour, that is sponsored by Saudi money that has been heavily criticized, and all the players, we have a Swedish one who is there now who has been extremely criticized, and he was taken off as a captain for the European team and so forth. And then on the other side you have Manchester City, who is also sponsored by Saudi money, and their players are not getting close to the same heat as the golf players do.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're. I mean, you are right in what you're saying, but I guess we just have to to step back and look at. Let's leave golf for 1 second. It is very convenient for the PGA Tour that there is Saudi money there, because let's just think for a minute. If the money didn't come from Saudi Arabia and it was coming from 5 investment funds in the United States, the players will still live. More players were going to leave the PGA Tour because they were not happy with the money they were making, and they will go somewhere else. And if this is happening, it's because the PGA Tour had no competition. I mean, they have no choice. So it's great for them that the money is coming from Saudi Arabia, because it's easy to criticize Saudi Arabia. But the idea of an alternative tournament that can have great players, I think this is still valid. How this is being made, that I understand there are some problems there. When it comes to Manchester City, as far as I understand, Abu Dhabi is where the ownership. Most of the money comes from Abu Dhabi. They're part of the investors that are Saudi, and they don't get much criticism for that. Newcastle is the opposite. Newcastle is owned by the Saudi investment fund, and they're heavily criticized. But again, this is very hypocritical, because if you look how England and how London in particular welcomed money from Russia and from many countries in the last 10, 15, 20 years, I don't understand if they are in a position to say today, hey, but this money is not welcome here. This other money, which was as dirty as the Saudi money, if you will, this we welcome with open arms. So oligarchs own a huge part of the real estate in London, and that was okay. But now it's no longer okay. So I don't understand. I think this is very inconsistent. So you either say, these are my standard, and none of you, Russia's and China's and Saudis meet my criteria, so I'm going to treat you everybody the same, or you open for everyone. The selective criticism is what I think it's hard to understand.
This episode is sponsored by InSport Education, the online business school for sport. They offer a range of different courses, for example, Foundations of Sport Business, Private Equity in Sport, and much, much more. As a listener to this podcast, you get 10% off all of their courses using the code SportsManagementPodcast10. Click the link in the description below and sign up today. In addition to everything that we have spoken about that you do, you are also the author of a course at Barca Innovation Hub.
Yes. So the Barca Innovation Hub, for those who are not familiar with it, is a partnership that the Barcelona, the club, has with education, with a university, and they developed online content that they sell on this platform, sports content in general. So they go from how to recover for basketball players to more management courses. So I wrote the course for sponsorship marketing, which is basically everything that I learned in my career. I try to compress in 32 hours or 30 hours of content, and it's available on their platform. So it was a good exercise for me to write it all down. It's like writing a book, right? So it's painful, but when it's done, it's very gratifying.
I'm sure. Are you teaching it also, or you wrote the curriculum?
No, it's all virtual. I recorded all the course, and what I do is it happens very often, and somebody is doing the course on its own, and then has a question, so they reach out LinkedIn or some other platforms, and I usually engage with everyone that has interest to talk about sponsorship.
That's great. Yes, and also since I am based in Sweden, I found it interesting also that you have taught at the Stockholm School of Economics. I saw also.
Yes. Loved it. They have a great course, great team. They were kind enough to invite me to speak last year. I enjoyed a lot the experience. I'm doing again this year. So it's I do talks to business schools, to sports schools often. They are one of the best and most organized that I've been involved with.
I would love to set you up with my university in Greece that I went to for a couple of years. In
I'd love to
Athens.
do it. Yeah, anytime.
I think that would be great. What would be your best advice for young people who wants to work in sports?
I think that most people coming out of school or they want to work with sports, they come to a sport because they like playing sports or like watching sports, which is a necessary factor, but it's not sufficient. So I guess to work with sports, you have to understand, it's how sports impact businesses, whatever businesses you're working with. So if you're a sponsor, so my job at Coca-Cola or Visa was not to sell sport, was to sell beverages or payments. If you work in an agency, your job is to get clients and activate clients for a sponsor. If you work on a league, can be to develop the sport or to attract more sponsors to the league. So you always have to have the business side in mind to succeed at working in sports, right? So unless if you're an athlete, or if you're a coach, or if you're working as a sports person, or even for an apparel brand. So if everybody that works for Nike or Adidas, they love sport, but they are selling apparel, right? At the end of the day. So having that in mind is important. The other thing is the idea that you have to choose your path right out of school. You don't. So the more experiences, the more diversity and experiences you can have over the first 10 years of your career, the better professional you're going to be. So I encourage everyone to try to work for an agency for some time because you see a lot of different things, different clients, work with different people, you create a network, you learn a lot in these first few years. If you have the chance to work for a rights holder, go work for a league, for a football club, for a federation. It's also a very different experience. Go work for a sponsor, same story. You're going to learn very different things. So the more you can walk around this industry and spend time doing different things, the more prepared you're going to be to for your future. Careers are very they're very long. You're going to work 30, 40 years of your life. So it's really every year is not that relevant in the big scheme of things. So allow yourself to try different things and to work in different places, but always have the idea that sports is a business at the end of the day, and your contribution is growing businesses no matter which side of sport you are involved with.
That's a great advice. For someone like yourself who has worked with or at some of the biggest brands in and around sports, has there been any bumps on the road in your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
It is. Every job has bumps almost every day. I mean, there are contracts that are not great. There are deals that you're not proud of. There are players that write stupid things on Twitter. There are athletes that smoke things that they should have smoked, drunk athletes driving. So you get this kind of stuff often because sporting is a great, very visible part of our lives, but it's also very risky because you have a lot of young people, some of them very rich, very famous, very visible, and they're young. So sometimes bad things happen, but there are ways to minimize the risk. And I'll tell you a brief story. I was managing a sponsorship of probably one of the top 3 athletes of all time, and it was a long sponsorship when I got to the job, and this athlete was not behaving very well, had some weird habits, did some wrong things, and luckily we put on a contract that if you do it again, we're going to terminate you. And he did it again, and he was terminated. And it was a shock for him that any brand would terminate the contract because, it's so famous. But if you plan well, if you have the right resources, if you do the contracts well, then you are protected. So yeah, bumps happen all the time. Sometimes you sign deals that you don't want to sign because someone in the company wants to play golf. So it happens in every company. So the good companies, they have very few cases like that. I was very lucky because my bosses at Visa and Coke, they were very focused on the business. So none of them have ever asked me to sign a contract that didn't make sense for the business. But I see this happening all the time.
So who was the athlete?
Well, I cannot tell the name. Yeah, too bad. Sorry.
I assumed as much. I had to ask anyway. Approaching the end here, is there something that I haven't asked you that you want to bring up?
There's one thing that I usually discuss with people that invest in sport, which is more the future of the industry, the future of the investments. If you want to work with sports, is it an industry that is worth investing on? We saw during the last 2-3 years now since COVID started, all the industries going down, but the speed of recovery of sports has been faster than most. Because we deal with things that people care. When you deal with things that people care about, everything else is easier. The business is easy, the activation is easy, life is easy. I mean, I think this is something that is great for people that want to work with sports. I worked for my first job at Unilever. I was responsible for kitchen cleaners, and I went back home very excited with the products. And I showed my mom, and not even my mom cared about the products, right? Those were commodities. They said, if you don't have this brand, I buy the other one. So nobody cared about that brand. So it's a category of product that you have to work really hard to create value and meaning. But when you deal with sports, everybody stopped to talk to you. I mean, if any of your distant family members, find out what you do for a living, they will stop to discuss with you, your job. So it's very exciting to be part of something that people care. And because people care, if you do the right things, you have the chance to create impact in ways that are lasting, and they are important, and they are big, and they are so meaningful. So you do things in sport, you affect a lot of people's lives for the better, hopefully. So this is something that very few jobs offer. So if my daughters wanted any advice, they don't ask advice from me, but if they want any advice, I would tell them to work with sports because I think it's great, it's fun, and everybody will can have a successful, fun future.
I'm sure. And I hope that the listeners asked your advice, although your daughters don't. The last question that I ask everyone is if you could choose the next guest on this podcast, so someone from the sports industry, who do you think that I should talk to?
I think you should talk to my friend Kate Johnson. Kate is the head of sponsorship, sports, marketing, entertainment for Google. And she's excellent, super smart, former Olympian, silver medalist in Athens, one of my favorite people in the business. So you should definitely talk to Kate.
That's fantastic suggestion. I will definitely do that.
Mm-hmm.
Ricardo Fort, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Sports Management Podcast.
Nice talking to you, Mark. Thank you for the invitation again.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @sportsmpodcast.